Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon spoilers video. So, over this past week we got a whole bunch of new and exciting cards to look at, both in the form of new promos and more BT07 cards, so let's just dive right in. Starting off with the promos, we have a new version of Phoenixmon. So this new version of Phoenixmon visually is looking like it's going to follow the same trend that the Wargreymon started with it having the tamer on the art, which looks really nice. But what this Phoenixmon is doing is, stat-wise, nothing really too special for being a red level 6, but it does have a really good when digivolving ability where if we have a tamer in play, then this Digimon gains security attack +1 for the turn. So this is really good because it's very similar to BT01 Wargreymon's ability, where he just gives himself the buff, and then we could use that buff in some very interesting ways. One of the more interesting ways is we could use that on our level 7s because the buff will transfer over to the level 7s, thus making whatever level 7 we are digivolving into that much stronger for the turn we digivolve into this. So as of right now, the best card to utilize this ability with is going to be the Blitz Omnimon, to just have him have another security attack plus when he's swinging into the opponent's security, because Blitz allows you to attack even when the memory transfers over to the opponent. So it's just looking to be really good for that alone. And then on top of that, it has another really good ability where during your turn once per turn, if this Digimon is blocked, you get to trash out the top card of the opponent's security stack. So not only is it trying to give itself security attack +1 to try to deal as much security damage as it can, but it also has a downside for the opponent wanting to block, where if they don't take the 2 security checks when you digivolve into this, then the opponent is just going to have their security get burned, and that's not checking the security, so there will be no security effects activating off of that check. And that's really good, especially since if this card stays on the field for more than a turn, then you could use this ability over and over again to deal some consistent security damage, whether it's through a check or whether it's through them blocking and this ability going off. So Red has a lot of ways of just DP boosting, they have a lot of ways of gaining additional security attacks, so I think there is a possibility that this Phoenixmon could see some play just because Red could be very threatening as a whole. Next up, we have a new Hercules Kabutermon promo card. So Hercules Kabutermon has the same stats as the Phoenixmon that was just shown, and this time Hercules Kabutermon is looking to be pretty interesting. So he has 2 abilities, a when digivolved ability and a ability that just happens during your turn. So his when digivolving ability is if you have a tamer in play, then you get to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon down. So we're kind of seeing already the similar trend where their when digivolving ability is requiring a tamer in play, but the when digivolving ability is looking to be pretty strong, especially since Green wants to attack into the opponent's Digimon. So just going up into Hercules Kabutermon to basically suspend one of the opponent's Digimon down is already looking to be very powerful, especially since it pairs up with his second ability, where during your turn, when this Digimon deletes an opponent's Digimon by battle and survives, then we get to gain 1 memory. So not only does he just rest the opponent's Digimon, but he's also gaining some memory for being able to attack into it, and we could use this card with some of the new green hybrid stuff, like JP, the Tamer card, to just basically have a way to give this Digimon piercing, so that way he could even do piercing damage. So I'm really liking what this card is doing, and I think this is going to be a really good card to be playing around with, especially since we know in the Classic Collection, we also got Insectoid support, so he is following with that, considering there is a Hercules Kabutermon in that set. So I think this Kabutermon is going to be a really fun card to be playing around with. And then the last promo that we got shown is going to be a new version of Vikebon. So Vikebon, stat-wise, is just a tiny bit different than the others, considering he has an Evo cost of 4, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I guess that's okay considering his ability seems to be a little bit stronger than some of the others. So what Vikebon is doing is he has a when digivolving ability where if we have a tamer in play, then 3 of our opponent's Digimon without Digivolution sources can't attack until the end of the opponent's next turn. So that's just already looking to be pretty good, considering Blue has this nice sub-theme of attacking the opponent's inheritable sources, making sure that they have Digimon with no inheritable sources in play, so that way they could try to gain some benefits and capitalize on that. So this is just stun locking the opponent's Digimon from attacking. Note they still can block, but stopping some aggression is looking to be really, really good already. And then on top of that, he also has a when attacking ability where once per turn, return one of the opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution sources in it back to its owner's hand. So this is already a pretty solid form of removal considering Blue has had a big distinct lack of really good removal. They had a couple of things here and there, but nothing too spicy or interesting on their Digimon bodies. So it's nice to see that Blue is getting a little bit more types of varied removal on their Digimon bodies, making it a more viable color just because Blue had a lack of removal and it turned into a more aggressive style color as a result. So I think Vikebon is looking to be a really good card to kind of double down and enforce what Blue Control kind of can be and Blue Control can kind of do. Alright, now on to the BT07 spoilers. First up, we have Beetlemon. So Beetlemon is going to be the green hybrid of the set, and, you know, it only makes sense because he is JP's Digimon. Well, I guess he is JP, but I digress. Regardless, he is the green hybrid of the set, and he has the very classic hybrid ability where you could Digivolve him from your hand on top of one of your green tamers as if it was a level 3 Digimon. So this ability already is really, really good just because there's not a whole lot of tamer interaction, so just having a tamer sitting on the field for you to utilize it for your hybrids is already a really good strategy. And then on top of that, he even has a nice when Digivolving ability where you get to reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, and then you get to add one Digimon with hybrid in its form and one JP from among them into your hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So not only is he acting as a really decent hybrid to be utilizing just for being a hybrid, but he also is going to be the dedicated digger for green and their hybrids, and this is really good considering we know that green also has Arbormon and Petaldragon to be working off of, on top of Ancient Troymon as a solid level 6 to be working with. So them already having those and them possibly getting more just make Beetlemon a really good card to be playing with for green hybrids. Next up, we have Kiseleomon, or Jagerloimon. Whichever translation they're actually going to end up going with, who knows, considering they're already following a very inconsistent track record. But either way, for right now, I'm just going to be referencing it as Kiseleomon because, you know, that's just the dubbed name and that seems like what they were going with for some of the others. So Kiseleomon is looking to be a pretty decent purple level 4 Digimon. He has the ability to Digivolve off of a level 3 for 3 or a level 4 for 1. So I guess that's kind of how they're doing the side forms is they are allowing them to Digivolve for 1 on top of the other level 4. So that's already looking to be pretty decent considering that just adds a lot of extra flexibility on how you could play the card. But this also has the nice ability where you could Digivolve this card from your hand on top of one of your purple tamers for a memory cost of 2. So I guess he even has extra playability there considering he actually is acting as a hybrid to Digivolve off of your tamers. So that's looking to be very good, especially since he has 6,000 DP, which is pretty high for level 4s. And on top of that, he even has another ability where when you Digivolve into him, if this Digimon has a Digimon with hybrid in its form or a Koichi in its Digivolution source, then this Digimon gains the retaliation ability until the end of the opponent's next turn. So this is a pretty okay ability. Retaliation is really strong just because it's acting as some decent form of removal, and it's a de-incentivizer for the opponent wanting to attack into your Digimon. So it'll be really fun to think about all of the ways that we could utilize this card, and I think this is going to be a really decent card for the purple hybrid deck, considering we know that purple hybrids is going to have some really interesting support, thanks to the Cherubimon line and whatever else purple might be getting in the set. Next up, we have a new version of Beowulfmon. So Beowulfmon is looking to act a little similar to how the new Altamon is acting, where he has this nice ability where when your Digimon has a tamer in its Digivolution source and you Digivolve into this Digimon from your hand, then you get to reduce the Digivolution cost by 2. So as long as you have a tamer underneath whatever you're going to be Digivolving into, he actually Digivolves for 1 instead of 3, which is huge on tempo. and tempo is really, really important considering it allows you to just go up into your higher stages that much more efficiently, which means you could take the opponent by surprise based on what you're going to be playing with. And then on top of that, he also has a when attacking ability where you get to return one Digimon with hybrid in its form from this Digimon's Digivolution source to your hand to return one of the opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon back to their hand. So this is just acting as some really decent removal for the opponent's low-level Digimon. This is really good, especially on the blockers, because most of the blockers that people are going to be running are level 4s. So this is just a really good card to use just to try to get rid of some blockers. It is unfortunate that it is on a when attacking ability, so depending on what other abilities you might have, you might want to try to either DP boost them or try to make them as safe as you possibly can when you're swinging with them, so that way he could actually live. But either way, just the ability to consistently bounce one of the opponent's Digimon is really good, as long as he has evolution sources that you could use for this ability. But it's not like returning them to the hand is a really bad thing, considering that seems to be what Blue is going to be playing around with, is just figuring out ways to add more cards to your hand, so that way you could reuse them later. And speaking about increasing your overall hand count for some sort of benefit or to reuse the cards later, we have Magigurman. So Magigurman is actually a Garurumon, so you could use him with some of the Garurumon synergies that we already have in the game, adding to his overall playability, but what he's doing for hybrids is already looking to be pretty good. So what he is doing is he has a when digivolving and when attacking ability, so you're able to get this effect off when you're using either of those two conditions. So what his ability is once per turn, you may return one Digimon with hybrid in its form from this Digimon's Digivolution source back to your hand, to basically bounce one of the opponent's Digimon back to their hand with the same level as the one that you return. So this is really good considering it just allows you to bounce back a wide variety of different targets. Yes, you do kind of have to use him more with hybrids rather than Garurumons in order to get this ability off, but regardless, just a really good way of consistently bouncing the opponent's Digimon back to the hand is already looking to be pretty strong, so that way you could be as disruptive as you possibly can while forwarding your board state as much as you possibly can. And then on top of that, he even has a nice other ability that pairs with his first ability, where during your turn, once per turn, when your hand size is increased by an effect, then you get to unsuspend one of your Digimon. So this is just really, really powerful because it could be him, it could be something else, and it's just stating when your hand is increasing by an effect. So whether you're using it with his ability or whether you're using it with a card that just lets you draw cards, it doesn't necessarily specify. It's just as long as cards are going into your hand, you could unsuspend one of your Digimon, thus allowing you to get an extra attack in, and that's just really, really good. So this is just looking to be a very fantastic card to be using for the blue hybrid deck. And the blue hybrids are already looking to be pretty strong considering we have a good pool of cards that we already have access to on top of the ones that they're getting for this set, not only just for Koji, but for Tommy as well, because Tommy is also going to be in the blue hybrid line. Next up, we have another version of Pulsman. So it really seems like they like Pulsman, considering this is, what, the third or fourth Pulsman we've seen. But I digress, and Pulsman is looking to be pretty decent, where this time he just has a inheritable skill of when attacking once per turn. If you have exactly 3 security, then you get to gain 2 memory. So this is just, very classic on what Pulsman's doing. Pulsman wants you to be at exactly 3 security, so that way you could trigger various abilities off to their utmost potential, or, just trigger them in general. And we have easy ways of putting us to exactly 3 and maintaining 3, so I think this is going to be a pretty decent ability just to generically use to gain 2 memory, to just push yourself forward and push the Pulsman deck along. Next up, we have a new version of Bulkmon. So it looks like they're trying to flesh out the Pulsman line a little bit more, and this Bulkmon is looking to be pretty good considering he has a nice inheritable skill where during the opponent's turn, while you have 3 or more cards in your security, then this Digimon gains the blocker ability. It's kind of weird seeing this ability on this Digimon considering this feels more like a black ability slapped with a yellow condition. So while it does have a condition to gain the blocker ability, the fact that this is more of a black ability is a little bit concerning considering each of the colors need to be doing something more specific to them, and the fact that yellow just keeps getting more and more tools to basically do everything the other colors can is more alarming than anything else, considering we already had a huge problem with yellow in the past. Yellow did kind of die down a little bit in terms of its playability and popularity in Japan with BT6 and Classic, considering they didn't get that many new and meaningful cards to push the color forward, but it looks like they're going back to just giving yellow literally everything under the sun, and now that they have a blocker to be playing around with on their higher level Digimon, it's looking to be a very powerful card to be using for a lot of yellow decks, especially since the condition is rather easy to meet, considering Pulsman already can meet the 3 security, but the fact that you also can have more than 3 security to retain the blocker ability is very, very strong, considering it's a little bit easier now to recover past 3 or remain at 3 than it was before. So this is looking to be a very powerful ability to be using for a lot of yellow decks. Next, we have Bautmon. So it actually looks like they're going to be continuing the Pulsman line past Bulkmon this time, and this Digimon looks to be just another really powerful yellow level 5 Digimon to be playing around with. So what this card is doing is he just has the inheritable skill where during the opponent's turn, while the opponent's Digimon attacks a player, then if you have 3 or more cards in your security, then you get to activate this Digimon. So the obvious synergy is this is supposed to be paired up with Bulkmon to give your Mega Digimon the ability to block, and this basically just gives the pseudo reboot ability where it just allows that Digimon to block if they're still trying to aggress onto your security. And then, like I said before, yellow just has some very easy ways to retain and maintain 3 or more security, so it's not like this is going to be that hard of a condition to meet, especially in a control style deck. So it's just, again, adding to the overall problem that yellow has had as a whole, where it's just getting lots of tools that it really shouldn't be having that should belong to other colors, and this is just looking to be another very strong color break kind of a card. Next up, we have Kazuchiman. So Kazuchiman is going to be the Pulse Line Mega level Digimon, so this is looking to be a pretty good level 6 Digimon, and its stat-wise is kind of interesting considering it has a natural evo cost of 5 with only 12,000 DP, so I'm guessing it has some way to basically, in quotation marks, reduce its evolution cost to make it on par with a lot of other Mega levels, so it's probably going to figure out a way to evo for 3 instead of 5, so let's just read what its ability is. So its ability is when Digivolving, if you have 3 or more cards in your security, then you get to gain 2 memory. So there you go. There you have it. If you have 3 or more cards, he basically costs 3 to evo when you're evoing him on the field. But he has an additional part to this ability where if you have 2 or fewer cards in your security, then you get to recover 1 until you're at 3 security. So this is actually really, really powerful, even though if you're under 2 security, you won't gain the 2 additional memory, so he does evo for 5. You're gaining the security back, so if you're basically at 0 security, recovering 3 off of a when Digivolving is very, very powerful, because not only is it refreshing your security back to 3, it's putting you within the Pulsman line's threshold, where it just always wants to be at 3 security to trigger as many of its abilities as it possibly can, and that's just looking to be really good, especially since we know that this will be able to gain the blocker ability. It basically will gain a pseudo reboot ability, and on top of anything else we could pair up with this. So just this first part of the ability is looking to be very, very strong, because we do also have cards that interact with cards going back into our security and cards being taken out of our security. So it'll be quite interesting and unique to see how we could build a Kazuchiman deck. And then on top of all of that, he has another ability where during your turn, while you have 3 or more cards in your security, then this Digimon gains security tech +1, thus adding to the overall aggression and pressure that this card could put onto the opponent. So this is looking to be a very, very powerful card, and I'm kind of interested to see where this kind of a card will go and how people will utilize this card, considering it plays with a whole bunch of other yellow cards as a whole on top of the Pulsman line that we just saw. Next up, we have Tortemon. So Tortemon is looking to be a pretty solid Digimon to be using, because he has this nice inheritable ability where when attacking, we get to reveal 1 green Digimon from our hand and place it on the top of our deck to give this Digimon plus 3000 DP for the turn. So this is kind of an interesting way of gaining some DP. It is quite a lot of DP to be gaining all at once, especially if you're going to be using this up for your level 5s, and this is looking to be a pretty good ability to interact with, say, something like Jagmon, because you could put the green Digimon on top of the deck, and then you'll obviously want to put a level 6 on the top, so that way you could use Jagamon's ability of when attacking to just check the top cards to Digivolve into a level 6 when he's attacking, and then that level 6 will also retain the plus 3000 DP boost. So this is looking to be like a really good card to be using for a Jagmon style of deck, and we do have other cards like Mimi and Izzy to kind of double down and enforce this kind of playstyle, so it'll be interesting to see where they go with this, but I think it's going to be a really fun deck to be playing. Next up, we have Meme Tairamon. So Meme Tairamon is, for all intents and purposes, Jagmon 2.0. Its ability is exactly the same, where it has a when attacking ability, you get to reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, and then you get to Digivolve this Digimon into one green level 6 Digimon from among them for free, and then the rest go to the bottom. So that's the exact same type of ability that Jagmon has, and it's looking to be pretty interesting of an ability to be playing around with, considering we have Tortemon that now can interact with this, where it'll give it plus 3000 DP, and help set up Meme Tairamon and Jagmon, and Izzy and Mimi. So it's looking to be like it's actually trying to form that style of deck, and I really do like the stats on this card versus Jagmon, just because you could hard play this for 5. Obviously, you're going to want to try to Digivolve this on top of Tortemon to get Tortemon's inheritable ability off, but if you already have a Tortemon on the field, and you're able to utilize its inheritables, then just hard dropping Meme Tairamon for a quick level 5 is still a very viable strategy to be doing, and I think in the combination of all of those parts, there is going to be a deck that's going to be forming, and I think it's going to be a really fun deck. Do I think it's going to be super competitive? Who knows? Only time will tell, but I do think it's going to be a fun deck to be playing nonetheless. Next up, we have Lucifon Chaos Mode. So Lucifon is finally getting his alternate mode, and yes, this is another secret rare, but you don't necessarily need the first Lucifon in order to play the second one. So what this Lucifon is doing is there's 3 parts to this card. Stat-wise, he is a level 5 that hard plays for 14 and has 12,000 DP, so like the original Lucifon that's yellow, he's just got some really large stats for the level that he's currently being in. But breaking down the 3 abilities that he has, the first ability that he has is your Lucifon Digimon can Digivolve into this Digimon from your hand by paying 7 and ignoring the Digivolution requirements. So, well, there is no Digivolution requirements, so basically this is just telling you if you want to Digivolve Lucifon into Chaos Mode, then you're going to have to pay 7, so that's already looking to be pretty okay. It's a little on the steep side, but this Lucifon is looking to be pretty good because of its on-play and on-Digivolve ability, so it does get both of those. But if you want to hard play this from your hand and not even bother playing the yellow Lucifon, it also has the nice ability where when you play this card from your hand, you get to reduce the memory cost by 3 for every 10 cards in your trash. So this isn't exactly super great. With 10 cards in your trash, that means this card hard plays for 11. With 20, that means that this card hard plays for 8. So it's not super great. It's not like god awful, but it's not amazing either. But the idea of the card is you have different ways to utilize the card depending on the type of deck that you're going to be playing, and no matter what you use him for, whether you're Digivolving or playing him from your hand, you're going to be getting his on-play and when Digivolving ability to delete one of the opponent's level 6 or lower Digimon or one of the opponent's Tamers. So this is another card that is going to be interacting with Tamers by being able to delete them, and it's also just a really good Digimon to use just because he could also delete any Digimon that's level 6 or lower. So this is just a very interesting card to think about playing around with, and I'm really curious to see what comes of this card. Now, I am aware that you could utilize Necrophobia or Revive from Darkness in order to play this card for a lot cheaper than his Evo cost or hard play cost when it's reduced, but you won't get his on-play ability off, and because you're not getting his on-play ability off, that severely limits the card's overall potential, but even still, just being able to get a level 5 body out off of those cards is still very, very powerful, considering he just has some really large stats for being a level 5 Digimon. But he does have his own option card that he does want to be interacting with. And that option card is going to be Ultimate Sacrifice. So Ultimate Sacrifice is an 8-costed purple option card with the main ability where you get to play 1 purple level 5 Digimon from your trash without paying its memory cost. And if you have 10 or more cards in your trash, then you could play 1 Digimon with Lucemon in its name for free instead. So the whole idea behind this card is you're going to be paying 8 to basically either revive a level 5 Digimon, which you will get its on-play ability. So you could hard play it for whatever its normal cost is, or you could utilize the option card to play it from your trash for free. And the second part of this ability, where you could just res a Lucemon, is being more specific, referencing the first Lucemon. So that way you could res either of the Lucemons at whatever one you feel like, depending on what the situation is. And on top of that, this also has the very nice security ability of activating its main effect. So when it's checked in security, you still get to revive either the old Lucemon or the new Lucemon. So you'll be able to either recover 1 off of this or delete one of the opponent's Tamers or level 6 or below Digimon while spawning a very large body. So I think this is going to be a pretty okay option for that type of a deck to be utilizing if you are going to try to use both of the Lucemons in one deck. Next up, we have Susanomon. So we finally get to see all of the hype and buzz around Susanomon, and he's looking to be a pretty interesting Digimon, considering he is the first Digimon in the game that is a level 7 that can Digivolve off of all colors, because I'm just assuming that that 7 Digivolution cost, the color is supposed to be rainbow, and rainbow is supposed to represent all colors. So this is looking to be a pretty decent Digimon just because he could fit in basically any deck, just because he could Digivolve off of any color, and you only just have to pay 7 in order to get this card out. So he's going to be a really flexible card for a lot of different decks to consider using, and on top of that, he has a couple of very interesting abilities. So his first ability, which is an alternate way in order to play the card, is you get to place 10 Tamers or Digimon with hybrid in their traits from your hand and or trash to the bottom of your deck in any order to Digivolve this on top of one of your Tamers from your hand as if that Tamer was a level 6 Digimon. So this card allows you to warp a Tamer all the way up to a level 7 just by fulfilling all of the conditions that I just laid out. So that's already looking to be pretty interesting, considering just, a level 7 that comes out of nowhere is, something we haven't really seen before. I mean, we have kind of seen it before, but not like this. So that's just a really unique aspect to the card, and then on top of that, he natively has Security Tech +2, so he's just already going to be hitting for 3 security checks no matter what by default, and that's just looking to be pretty strong. And on top of that, he has a when Digivolving ability, where you get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon, so it's basically a Gaia Force attached to his when Digivolving ability. So at least when you go all the way up into him, whether you're Digivolving him naturally on top of a level 6 or using his ability to warp him from a Tamer to a level 7, this when Digivolved ability at least will get you some value out of the card natively. It is a little bit unfortunate that he is lacking some native protection, but I guess the protection does come in the form where you're supposed to warp him from a Tamer on the field, so that way you could swing with him right away, assuming you're going to have 7 memory to be playing around with and not passing the turn over to the opponent. So it's a really interesting card to think how good this card could be, and we still have all of the hybrid Digimon and hybrids and 10 warriors to be interacting with, so I'm really curious to see how this card is actually going to be used. Next up, we have Ancient Evolution. So Ancient Evolution is going to be another 0-cost white option card, and what this card is doing is it's just more hybrid support. So what this card is specifically stating is if you have a hybrid Digimon, you could use this option ignoring its color requirements. So we've kind of seen cards play around with ignoring the color requirements just because there are a couple of different archetypes where they just want to work with certain cards. So this is already fitting on theme with just playing around with hybrids as a whole, because again, we are going to be getting a whole bunch of hybrids and hybrid support in the set. So what this card is actually doing is it has the main ability where one of your level 4 Digimon can Digivolve into one Digimon from your hand that's the same color and is a 10 Ancient Warrior by playing its Digivolution cost and ignoring its level requirement. So basically what this card is doing is it's allowing you to warp from a level 4 hybrid into one of your level 6 10 Ancient Warriors, and that's looking to be pretty good considering we already have 3 10 Ancient Warriors in the game. We're probably going to eventually get more, and all of them are going to be relatively powerful, like Ancient Greymon and Ancient Garurumon and Ancient Troymon are already really strong cards that see lots of play in their own respective decks. So this just makes all of those cards even more playable and doubling down and enforcing that you want to be playing them with the hybrid cards. And then on top of that, this has the security ability of being able to add this card to your hand, so that way when it's checked into your security, you can use it whenever you feel like you're ready. So I think this is a pretty interesting card. The game seems to wanting to be warping more and more and allowing other cards to be more playable than they were before. So who knows, maybe this is going to make Ancient Garurumon, Ancient Greymon, and Ancient Troymon even better than what they were before, but only time will tell to see what deck this actually goes into and how good those decks are actually going to be. And just as a quick little aside or a quick little hot take, I think I'm starting to understand why they are including a lot of these like warps more and more in the game. And I think that's because a lot of people really don't like the fact that there's no mulligan system in the game. And I think that they're not going to incorporate any mulligan system in the game. So this is kind of their current workaround where, oh, you have a level 4, you have a level 6, but you don't have a level 5. Well, now here's a card to just help you get from your level 4 to your level 6, and so on and so forth. So I feel like that's the reason why they've been playing with warping more and more, even though it is kind of changing the foundation of the evolution mechanic as a whole, just because it's actually retroactively changing, utilizing cards like this and abilities where you could just warp. But I digress, and that's kind of my interpretation on why they're utilizing these types of abilities more and more. On top of these type of abilities being kind of a little lore reference, also depending on the type of card and what type of media they were referencing. And then the last set of cards I'm going to be talking about are going to be Rasenmon's evolution line. So this evolution line comes from the Digimon Arise mobile game, and we already knew what his Mega was doing, and it was a Mega that was interacting with Digiburst in Yellow, which Yellow hasn't really played a whole lot around it with Digiburst, so they're getting a little bit more Digiburst support and synergy here. So what we have is, starting off with the level 3, is Pulsman. So Pulsman is looking to be that one card that Yellow was lacking, where it has the inheritable ability of when this is trashed due to the activation of a Digiburst ability, then this card goes back into your hand instead. So Yellow was the only color that was lacking this interaction with Digiburst, and now they finally have it. And then on top of that, we have the level 4, which is going to be Vikebon, which he's looking to be a pretty okay level 4 for Yellow. Again, stats aren't really anything too special, but it does have the main ability of Digiburst 2, where you get to activate the ability by trashing 2 of its inheritable sources, and that ability that you're going to be using is one of the opponent's Digimon gains security tech -2 until the end of the opponent's next turn. So it's just a way to help stop some of the opponent's aggression, which is pretty okay. I don't necessarily think this card's going to see that much play. So who's to say how good this card's actually going to be, but I don't necessarily see it being super important. But what I do think is actually going to see some play is going to be the level 5 in the evolution line, and that's going to be Stifilemon. So Stifilemon has this really interesting when digivolving ability, where if this Digimon has one Digivolution source, then you get to place up to 2 level 4 or lower Digimon from your hand to the bottom of this card's Digivolution source, and then you get to draw 1 card for each card placed under him. So it actually kind of does want to incentivize you using Filemon's Digiburst ability, so that way you could add more inheritable sources onto Stifilemon, and that's looking to be really unique and pretty decent. Yellow has some pretty okay inheritables. Most of their good inheritables are on their level 5s and not necessarily their level 4s, but they do have some really solid ones on their level 3s. So who's to say what you're actually going to be using this with? But regardless, it's looking to be a pretty decent card just for some extra card draw, and the fact that it actually wants you to utilize the Digiburst ability off of your lower levels. And then on top of that, it also has a nice inheritable ability where during your turn, when this card is trashed due to the activation of a Digiburst ability, then one of your Digimon gains security tech +1 for the turn. So it's going to be really interesting to see what this card is going to be used with and how this card is going to be used, considering the Mega is already looking to be pretty strong with interacting with the Digiburst mechanic. But my whole problem with this type of evolution line is just it's not accommodating for the change in how the game is going to be played. So 9 out of 10 times, you're not going to be moving your Digimon out of raising until you're ready to go into your level 6, or you already are a level 6. So that kind of just puts a huge damper and change on what cards are actually going to be used. So while something like Filemon is supposed to be cute, where you're supposed to Digiburst it away, so that way you could use its Digiburst ability, then Digivolve into the level 5 to use its when Digivolving ability, that's just not realistically ever going to happen ever. So more often than not, you're just going to keep the level 5 in Raising and then just move it out and go into your level 6 to use the level 6's Digiburst ability and go from there. So it's a little bit unfortunate that they're still designing cards based on the old way the game is played and not necessarily the new way the game is played, but who's to say that the game can't change back to the way it's supposed to be played instead of just playing this ginormous chicken raising game. So that's all the current cards that we have spoiled so far, and right now I really think the set is in an interesting position. I'm curious to see what the other hybrid cards and support are going to be in the set, so there's still just a lot we don't know, and there's still a lot of cards to come, so I'm excited to see how the set actually continues to grow and change the overall metagame, because, you know, that's just what happens with a new set. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.